If there's one thing we can all agree on, it's that customer marketing runs on relationships. But relationships run better when the systems don't slow you down. You know that feeling when you're in the middle of building an advocacy campaign, the energy is flowing, customers are responding, and suddenly, boom, your tool crashes or workflow hits a wall of approvals and integrations and what have you. It's like hosting a dinner party and realizing halfway through that your oven's timer is set to Celsius. Behind every seamless advocacy program or thriving customer community lies a maze of tools, processes, and decisions that no one really talks about. The kind of behind the scenes work that makes customer love look effortless but never really is. So, in this episode, I'm thrilled to be joined by someone who doesn't just understand that maze, she's mapped it beautifully. Welcome to the Loyalty Talks podcast, the space where strategy meets soul and customer marketing finally feels human. I'm Aparna, and after nearly 2 decades of building advocacy and loyalty programs, I know one truth. Customer voices are the strongest currency a brand will ever own. This podcast is for marketers who turn users into superfans and quiet work into industry-shifting impact. Whether you're launching your first program or leading a global engine, join me and my expert guests for honest conversations, real blueprints, and zero gatekeeping. Pull up a seat. This is the Loyalty Talks podcast. My guest today is Paola Johnson, Customer and Community Marketing Manager at Grafana Labs. Who knows that tech alone can't buy you loyalty? What she brings to the table is the clarity to connect the dots between people, purpose, and process. It is a conversation about how to make technology serve relationships and not smother them. Together, we'll unpack what it really takes to integrate tools that oil the wheels of customer marketing engine and not complicate it. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Aparna. It's so nice to have you here.
You we've been talking a lot and over Slack, and we've been engaging over CMA. And when this topic came up and I was writing my script, I was like, marketers don't get enough credit for being operational athletes. We are sprinting between strategy, sprinting between sprint planning, and sometimes sprinting to find a budget. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation, breaking this down today with you. And I'll roll out the first question. Let's start right at the heart of this conversation. What does beyond the stack mean to you in the context of customer marketing?
Yeah, great question. I think when I think of like beyond the stack, it's just like you said, tech can be a very powerful enabler, but it's not the full picture. Tools are really just like a piece of the puzzle. And going beyond the stack to me means you focus on things outside of the system. So processes, cross-functional alignment, and enablement, right? So like
Yeah.
without enablement all of these other components, like adoption is not possible. And even without focusing on that, like the best tools won't stick. And
Hmm.
it's something I've learned from my own customers around change management, that change management is really around changing behaviors and impacting people and bringing them along with the journey. And that's really what I think of when I think of beyond the stack is not really the platforms themselves, but these other aspects.
Yeah, I quite like that idea of systems behind systems,
Mm.
right? I think it's a very powerful way to put it also that it's always believed that best platforms, how do I put it? The best platforms are the ones you stop noticing. It should be similar to Wi Fi, right? So the minute it stops working, that's when you realize that, oh my God, it's not working. But till the time it's there and it works, it's smooth.
Yes, definitely. That's a really great analogy. I think maybe like another kind of piece of it is you want it to be almost so seamless into existing
Mm-hmm.
workflows.
Yeah,
especially to those that the technology will serve that, like you said, like, they don't even know it's there.
yeah.
That's, like, the best implementation.
But tell me something, when you think about your tech journey, right? What are the early signs that you needed more structure or automation? How did you prioritize what to bring in first?
Yeah, so I was very fortunate that my first marketing role was with a company who believed in me, a company as a data analytics company called ThoughtSpot, and I was actually
Uh-huh.
the first head of community, so I was a global role, a team of 1, and so it's very easy that I learned I needed to scale myself and help with automation, and so back then I was actually launching our community on Salesforce Experience Cloud.
Oh, wow.
For lack of better words, it wasn't exactly cutting edge, but it worked.
Mm-hmm.
But we quickly found out that, especially compared to intuitive tools like Slack and other like
Yeah.
modern community platforms, we received a lot of feedback from our users on like things that we could improve on. And so everything was super manual, like reporting, onboarding flows, eventually like, tracking activities. And so when I think of like, okay, what do you prioritize first? For me, it was really building a roadmap, like what's working
Mhm.
right now, what's missing, like, what can we tackle next? And I think really importantly is like, what will be the impact if we move forward with
Yeah.
those next projects? So for us, like a big complaint or like pain point was there was too many resources, which was great, but like our customers were not aware of them. And so for us, like the biggest priority and like the biggest impact was federated
Mhm.
search. And so all of a sudden, like, by connecting our docs, our training, and our community,
It all
people were
came
able
together.
to find, yeah, everybody was able to find things, and I think, even though it sounds really small, it was such an involved and very
Absolutely.
cross-functional project, and I think that was, like, the first for me that taught me, like, incremental and structured improvements.
Mhm.
You can kinda think of a stack as, like, an evolving thing versus, like, a one-time setup.
Yeah, yeah. I love that because that example that you gave of ThoughtSpot, I think it makes so much of sense because I remember when I ran one of my programs, I would call it the spreadsheet stack
Mm.
because I was working on Excel, manual reporting, manual follow ups, manual patience. Everything was manual for me. I think the smallest upgrades and the example of federated search, it's the smallest thing that you can integrate or add to make that operational difference. And I think everything changes with that kind of quick fix.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, tell me something. Now, there's always that moment when a shiny new platform's out there in the market and promises to solve everything that, you're worried and have sleepless nights about. So, what's your personal checklist before deciding to add a new tool to your stack?
Yeah, I love this question. I think one, as a former seller, like salespeople do an amazing job at really pinpointing challenges, and they can almost
Yes.
smell a team of ones who are desperate for some type of automation or silver bullet. But I think, what's really important is like starting with like what is our need to have
Uh-huh.
versus our like nice to have. When it comes
Hmm.
to customer
Interesting.
marketing, for me,
Yeah.
I learned very early on, like, it's almost like a framework, it's like the system. So, for me, and, like, when I'm thinking of customer marketing tools, I first think of, like, the different categories of functionality. So, how do you identify advocates? Like, how do you then
Yeah.
recruit them? How do you engage that community? How do you then, like, create prompts that create content for you? And then within each category, I start to map out what's really
Yeah.
important. So, for example, like, let's take engagement. Like, some organizations, maybe they have like a really great email, like,
Hmm. Hmm.
workflow. Other people, it might be more cumbersome to go through the email route. So, it's like communication within a platform would be really important to the organization. So, you really want to figure out like what's essential for your organization and like your little quirks that you have. And then from that, I create like this scorecard that I've been using for a couple years now. It has my categories. It then has
Uh-huh.
like my list of questions. And for each vendor that I meet with, they will receive the same question. So it's as unbiased as
Oh, this is
possible.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what I'll do is I'll create a yes, no, or partial answer.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then I created a formula that basically calculates a score off of those, responses, and it gives me like a calculated score out of 100. So it helps me compare vendors and tools
Yeah.
objectively
Yeah.
because in the heat of a demo, everything is so magical, but the
I agree.
scorecard the scorecard helps me stay grounded in strategy and in what I need versus just like sparkle of what I see.
I think it's genius because we did something like that. Also, it wasn't really my idea. And now that we are talking about the scorecard method, I think I should add a scorecard kind of a PDF that everyone can download. But honestly, it's quite a sanity saver, like you said, because you have everything directly in front of you and you can have those scores and list them out. Because, yes, we all agree sales does a fantastic job. And this is like dating. When we meet vendors, all of them swear they are different.
Yes, that is
But
so
by the
true.
end of the day, this scorecard thing was something that was introduced to us also. And I think it's a genius idea. It differentiates on who's going to go ahead and dazzle you and who's going to do the dishes in the night.
Yeah.
That's how you choose a vendor also. But. Okay, so on the flip side, how do you know when it's time to let go of a tool? Right? Because there are signals you watch for, or from your team, or listen to your customers, or even, I would say, even have bandwidth issues because not every tool, to be very honest, is going to be a productive tool. So how do you go ahead and let go of things?
Oh man, this brings back some sleepless nights. Um, I've been there
Mhm.
when, I've been in that moment of like feeling, keeping a tool alive feels like the full-time
Yeah,
job.
yeah.
But I think of, like, the signals are there, right? It's like, is this breaking often? Are we having to
Mhm.
buy professional services hours just to make it work? Like, are we drowning in customizations? Is it creating more, like, frustration amongst our team? Is
Yeah,
adoption dropping? Like, all of those, if you're nodding yes to that, then it's
yeah.
time to, dust your scorecard and maybe reevaluate, like, what is working? What is not working? What did you learn? Because
Hmm.
sometimes letting go of a tool that's not working for you is actually super strategic because then it can
Yeah.
open you up. I've been in the position where we had like a team and a tool that we purchased and nobody was adopting the tool. It was very hard to get adoption because of its UI and because it wasn't integrated into it was integrated originally into an existing workflow,
Uh-huh.
but then as sales teams evolved and as Slack became the new place where all sellers remained,
Yes.
it changed everything. Like we originally had rolled it out with the objection that Salesforce is the source of truth and that Salesforce is the place where people automate and go for
Mhm.
sales deals. But then slowly it shifted to Slack first. And so then it's like this tool no longer serves the need of our stakeholders.
Yeah. Even we guys felt that same thing because we had been using a technology for nearly a decade. So, like 7, 8 years, we had been using that technology. And there came a time where we started looking at it as yes, um, to assess it was our full time job as well. And I just feel there comes a point in your life where outdated technology, I feel it's like watering a plastic plant. You'll put in all the efforts, you are going to lose all those efforts. There is going to be zero growth because the technology doesn't solve its purpose anymore, or there are breakdowns of the mechanism, or there's bad service, or no new features, or something on those lines. So I completely get that, and I think it's a hard decision to let go, but then at the same time, the sooner you take that wise decision, the better it is.
100% agree, and I love your analogies. I'm equally very silly with my analogies, so we're, like, perfect for each other.
There are times that I'm writing a script and I wonder, is this really dumb to say this? And then I keep thinking, should I say it? Should I don't say it? And I mark it as optional in my script that, okay, if I get that kind of vibe from a person, I'll still use
I love
it.
it. I love it.
Okay, now coming back to technology. So, yeah, budgets, right? So, budgets are I would say, the reality check in our tech decision. Some tools might just seem very, very beautiful and nice and trending, but we might not be able to afford it. There are times that even if you can afford it, convincing people to take that wise call, how do you go ahead and make that decision? What are the factors that you, in your personal experience, think have helped you decide whether you need a 1 year contract, whether you need a multi year? How do you go ahead with that?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I used to disagree with our marketing ops team on this. So if they're hearing this, you guys have changed me. I used to lean towards like the multi-deal year or like year
Mhm.
deal because they look cheaper in the long run.
Correct.
But I think living through how fast tech changes, and especially in this world of like AI and everything is
Oh,
now like an AI powered company, like it's definitely changed my tune. Like I think 1 year contracts for net
yeah.
new tools, especially for your company, might give you the flexibility to pivot in case something new emerges
I,
or if your priorities shift. Like going back to that example where like at one point Salesforce was the place where sales operated and now it's Slack. Like agility is kind of like an ROI. Like it's its own kind of ROI, being able to move and adapt faster.
yeah. I think the longer a contract, it ages faster also, and you get tied down. And flexibility, as you said, is definitely a hidden ROI because you have the ability to switch. Yeah, I agree. But have you ever been on the receiving end of budget reversal? Okay, yes, we are taking this and you're prepping and you're all happy about it. And then, like, oh, no, 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 you're not getting it. I would say, what's that playbook for regrouping after you are thrown that curveball?
Well, yeah, it's a gut punch. I remember when it happened for me, it was right before I went on maternity leave. It was one of those moments where, how am I going to overcome this? But I think what makes it painful is like you've done your due diligence, you did
Yeah.
all these demos, you built the scorecards, you presented to every stakeholder that you possibly could, and then all of a sudden the rug gets pulled under you. And first, I will say, allow yourself to feel that disappointment because it's
Yeah.
super valid. And then all of a sudden change your perspective to, okay, let's get strategic. Like think through the lens of like, if I can't buy this, like how can I build this? And
Hmm.
that was one of the ways at that spot, like you kind of I helped MacGyver like a solution internally. Like what tools do we have? Like can I make this work? Like even if the processes seemed like duct taped together and you might involve other teams, like if you can produce results just off of what you could build, it
Hmm.
can really lock down and confirm like imagine what I could do with the right investment. Um, Through that process of just, like, not giving up and kind of seeing a no as, like, "Okay, maybe I need to try a different approach," I was
True.
actually able to secure future budget and headcount by being able to show, like, "If I can achieve this with bubblegum and paper clips, then imagine what I can get if you give me, some money and, like, a purpose-built tool."
Oh, I like that phrase. Yeah. I've had those moments also, the bubblegum and paperclip moments myself. I've always been very scrappy about
Mm.
things. Like with leftover technology, yes, I have done a lot. And I was very keen on this review engine tool at one point of time. And it'll help us create a unified approach to get reviews and blah blah blah. But then at the same time, I think in my case, I got a very valid reason on why not to take the technology, even after we had like demoed and everything and, won everyone's interest. But then at the same time, we did realize that, yes, we do have couple of things. And I still remember I built in a unified review site and it started churning those kind of results that at one point of time I had not thought, because I was so keen and leaning towards that technology that, oh yes, this makes life so much simpler, and this will be a great way to automate different things. But yes, I do understand uh, that how an alternate can be a boon, actually. But when we're onboarding new technology, my 2025 began with implementation, and having technology is definitely a bonus. But what are the biggest lessons that you feel while you've launched a different technology, embedding those new tools without losing your team's momentum or even the buy-in that initially, you had with everyone's support.
Oh, that's such a yeah, I think it's funny because whenever you're just championing for a solution and
Hmm.
tools, that feels like Everest. That feels like you're climbing Mount Everest. And then I feel like once you get to the buy-in and you purchased and the ink is dry and now it's time for you to implement it, then you realize you're just on the first summit of Everest and the implementation and the adoption and rollout is actually the rest of the way up. In my opinion, I do think that implementation can really make or break a tool. And what I've learned, and some of these lessons I've learned them the hard way, is
Mhm.
you have to document everything in the
Oh, I
sense
love
of
that.
like,
Yeah.
not for a negative perspective, but like your stakeholders were not involved in month-long calls. They
Mhm.
don't know what was the challenges before. And so this document really becomes like this knowledge transfer that makes sure that everybody is aligned on like why the tool matters, the key features that you want to roll out, maybe the phased approach that you're going to roll things out. What are the cross-functional roles and expectations? What are the clear timelines? And I think the thing I've learned is like to keep the momentum going, what's very helpful is to bring everybody into a shared space. For
Yeah.
us, it was like a Slack channel. And I pinned that document in that channel, set up a weekly
Oh.
cadence, and just keep communication consistent and transparently.
Hmm.
One of the things I learned as a seller is to frame conversations in what's in it for me, what's in it for them. Because once you do that, then people can now see the tool from like, okay, if I help implement this tool, my workflows, my goals will be improved. So therefore, I'm going to
Correct.
be Paola's champion. And I think adoption follows belief, right? So like if you believe in it, then you're going to be more, I guess you're going to be more willing to try out the tool and make sure that it succeeds.
That's such a underrated insight, like documenting the why and not just the how. It's important because I think by the end of it, I have burnt my hands by not doing it once. And I have realized that the rollout was completely flat because a lot of people, like the kind of story that I was launching and I was putting out there, they had not traveled that story, right? So they
Mm.
had no context of a lot of things that I was trying to pull off. So I realized it that yes, documenting is something very crucial. And I would repeat it again, it's a very underrated insight.
Yeah.
This, if you start doing that, it might sound tedious at first, but it's going to take you a very long way, in adoption. So, yeah, I agree.
Agree. Yeah, definitely. I was gonna add an extra point to that. I think, like you said, like especially when you're working with, like, let's say, customer success, like
Hmm.
their whole journey and the way that they think of your job is completely different than what you do. And
Absolutely.
I think one thing that I have found is helpful is like you might laugh, and all the customer marketers might laugh about this, but like whenever you're asking a customer to speak at an engagement, right? There's this loop of like you go have to go ask the account team, you got to go check the
Yes.
consumption. There's all these invisible steps that no one besides customer marketing might be aware of. And so even documenting like this is the challenge. This is like we went from, this tool is going to help us go from X amount of time to secure somebody to
Yeah.
days, like then they understand like I may not have walked that journey, but I understand how painful it must have been.
Oh, yes. Yeah. We've had that same thing at my previous companies. Reference program was something where the process and the steps was something we had to go ahead and chalk it out and make documents for it because, yeah, that was needed. But tell me, do you think that there's ever such a thing as enough technology? Like, is there an exploration part of the marketer's DNA at this point that, okay, this is it, or no, 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 we need more?
Yeah, I definitely I think it's part of my DNA, like, even if I were to have everything, I'm still probably gonna just out of curiosity
Uh-huh.
and to also keep your mind sharpened for the art of possible, I think for
Hmm.
marketers, tech is like walking into your favorite shopping store and being like, "I wish I could have it all because what if I get invited to a random party?"
I love that.
But I think, more tools does mean more management overhead, and kind of like what
Hmm.
you said, like, you don't wanna get into that position where now your full-time job is just managing a tool because, like, we're much more than that. Like, customer marketing, in my opinion, should be connecting with customers and hands-on with sales, and tools should help automate us versus, like, become that shiny distraction. Like, it should
Yeah.
serve a real need, and, the goal isn't to have every tool, it's to have the right mix that supports your strategy and helps you free up
Hmm.
your time for, like, those more important and strategic tasks.
Yeah, but I'm guilty too because I think I am one of those, and I love that departmental store analogy because I might look at one technology, I might want to explore things, and then I'll end up getting five integrations and a pilot project, and be all happy with my new toys to play. But yeah, I think curiosity is a part of as marketers, and I think some people, yes, definitely need discipline to keep on track and, know how to train your team to just have sufficient tools. And but then at the same time, I think you're right in a way that the best stacks aren't really the fullest ones. They're the more focused ones, like what you require, what you need, and what you're going to utilize by the end of the day. I love that. Now that we are at the end, and we've come at the end very quickly, we've been like very in sync with our answers and stuff like that.
I love it. That's how you know it's been a good time.
Yeah, I've just realized that yeah, we've nearly been at the end now, and it's like I can talk a little more about technology and tools and what have you offline, I'm sure, but I would love to know what all you've demoed recently. But yeah, now that we are at the last question, this is like my pet question, patent question is what's the best and the worst career advice that you've received till date?
Yeah, I would say one of the best advices I've heard was actually when I was in college, and they said, "Speak out your goals out loud." I guess, like, in millennial terms, that's like manifest.
Manifest.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I'm like a proud first generation professional, and so I don't have like a bunch of people to lean on, but like
Mm,
you got to
mm,
make them. And I think, if I hadn't told my mentors or leaders what I wanted to do in my like 5-year plan, I might still be in sales and I would never have found like what I love to do every day. I think when people don't know your ambitions,
uh-huh.
I truly believe people inherently want to help other people. And if they know in ways that they could help you, then they might open doors or they might advocate for you in rooms and with
You're
people
right.
that you're not in. So I would say that's my best career advice. And I would say follow that. My worst career advice is I'm a very authentic and open person. And then I've heard like you're too open. And I would say that's the worst advice because I
Okay.
get where it comes from.
Yeah.
Balance is important, especially like in the corporate and professional life, and maybe especially when leading a team. But I think authenticity is one of my superpowers. It
Hmm.
helps me connect with people, and I refuse to lose that just to corporate polish. I think the real relationships come from real people, and the same way I treat my friends is the way I treat my customers and the way I treat my
Yeah.
coworkers, and I want to bring that every day. So, that's my worst career advice. I don't suggest people follow that.
No, it's a complete, I would say a full circle answer and
Mm,
very honest of you to share it because I definitely feel the connect with speak your goals
mm.
out loud. And I've heard a lot about manifestation and creating a dream board and stuff like that. But yes, I definitely feel that till the time you're not actually going ahead and saying what you want or how you want it to be, no one's going to get to know what's within you in your deepest thoughts. And I really wish more people go ahead and practice that.
Yeah,
And the worst advice that you're talking about, I think I'm also one person, and not a very good thing to say probably online right now, but I have less filters. So I'm very out there, I'm very out and about. And I think nearly 2 decades of my career, my openness and the way I am, I don't try to, cover it with a different personality or something. I think it attracts the right people and the right opportunities.
agreed. Yeah, 100% agree. Real people recognize real people.
Yes, definitely. Paola, this has been such a grounded and generous conversation because you've been so open and so honest with your answers. I think it's just reminded me that yes, technology isn't really a strategy. It's that supporting act that we require in our work. We shouldn't hang on to everything tech and everything automated and run around vendors. That's a nice insight you've shared today.
Thank you so much. I'm not a car person, but you know that analogy, like
Yeah.
an engine can only go so far without everything else. And I think that's the perfect analogy to end on with tech. It's not a strategy, it's just a piece of the component.
Oh, I love that. And that's it for our loyalty today. Until next time, I hope everyone keeps the loyalty real and the marketing human.
Thank you so much.
If you found today's tea piping hot, don't forget to stir the pot. Share it, rate it, and bring a friend to the table. Until next time, keep turning loyalty into leverage with me, Aparna, and the Loyalty Talks podcast.